MotoAmerica fans, it's time for another episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you may even learn something from this unlikely pair and their special guest. The mic is yours, Paul and Sean.
Hello, MotoAmerica fans, and welcome to this latest episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. I am Bice in Central Ohio, and I'm joined by my partner, Paul Carruthers, in Southern California. And we've got a guest this week, which we're excited to talk to, four-time Superbike champion Josh Hayes, who is now coaching riders as well as still riding. And we got a lot of things we can talk to him about. But first of all, let me talk to Paul. Paul, how's it going?
It's going good. Thanks, Sean. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah, it's we had that nice busy week last week with all the Wayne stuff, and it was fun to watch that all weekend. There's so many people that were really into it, and the social media just blew up with it. So that was kind of cool. It was I know a lot of people reached out to me that I hadn't heard from forever, and I talked to Wayne this morning, and he said his phone's just been going nuts. So it's kind of cool, and it was also cool that our guest Josh Hayes was involved in the whole thing last week at Buttonwillow. So it's good to welcome him to the show. How are you today, Josh?
I'm doing good. I'm laughing that you're like, oh, I'm da 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 da. It was a very emotional week for you, I seem to remember.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I think it was for everybody who was there, and obviously for people who weren't there and got to see the video. It's touched a lot of people for sure.
And Wayne broke the internet.
Yes, officially. 100%. 100% broke the internet. It's funny because when we first
there.
Yeah, it's crazy. When we first started MotoAmerica and we were getting going, I told everybody, including Wayne, I'm like, our series will truly be something when Wayne's not the most popular guy in it. Well, we still haven't got to that point
yet. That might not happen.
It may never happen, but it's a good goal because if we could ever get our riders to the point where they were as famous as him, then we'd do something right. But we'll get there.
Well, the thing is that I think a lot of it has to do with our core fans. Our core fans were fans that far back. There's not a lot of the younger, newer fans that are more active spent less time watching racing and they're more time out doing track days and stuff. So his depth and reach, because it was harder to find, people made sure that they stopped to take the opportunity to watch it when it was available. I mean, we made bike nights around GP races being on Two Wheel Tuesday or whatever it was. And so you took those opportunities and you actually followed it more because the opportunities were harder to find actually at that time. It's kind of weird how it works backwards. Like at the information age, it's easier to see, but you seem like the depth actually is a little bit less. And so, but yeah, it's astounding how many people, and I bet this is something that you kind of say out loud, but you really don't think much about. But was what an impact on Wayne's fans this event was, and that's been the thing is people who have reached out and been like, I can't believe what I just saw, and it's like, oh, okay, wow, and it's something that probably Wayne as one person will probably never quite comprehend or feel the impact of how many people in the world were so, just influenced by it.
It's funny, Josh, because your chassis man who used to work with you, Steve Rounds, who had some involvement in at least setting up the bike a little bit. And I know he caught Wayne, not literally, but when he came back in, grabbed the fairing and stuff. And you know how Steve isn't all that active on Facebook, and he keeps a lot of his comments close to his, he doesn't say much, but he did make a point of commenting on how much of a big deal that was even to him on Facebook. So I was like, wow, Steve Rounds even comments on it. That was quite an emotional day. So
dude,
that's cool.
That guy is such a fan of our sport, and he's been involved, in it so deeply for so long. I'm sure that wasn't the most nerve-wracking week of his life.
Right.
He knew exactly what he was getting involved in. He knew what he was putting together for Wayne Rainey to go out and ride a motorcycle. And if it screwed up, that guy was going to lay on the sword big time. So I'm sure that, I know from working with the guy what a perfectionist he is. And it was so important for him that go well. And because look at how public it could have been if it didn't. So it may not have been. It may have been kept really quiet.
I feel sorry for whoever it is that's going to have to try to loosen anything that he tightened.
That man loves his torque wrench. I have a feeling it's all going to be all right.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
That's funny. Well, Wayne texted me this morning, and the bike, he gets a 15-minute practice session before his big event, and they've painted the bike to look like a replica of his 1993 bike, so it should be pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah, that's cool.
Very
and
cool.
He, maybe now he'll have a little better idea of what kind of exercises he needs to be doing to get ready for this. Because, like it was, definitely going to come back. I got to see it firsthand. Every lap was just like, okay. His eyes started looking further and further up, and it was funny because like he did two really 4-lap sessions, I think, basically, or maybe even a 3 and a 4, something like that. And when he went back out immediately in the second one, you could see the lines on the ground where the Superbikes were riding to be online. And he was putting himself online almost immediately,
wow.
Where the first one, he was just overwhelmed with, okay, how wide is the track? How does the bike move whenever because all he's got is his arms to really manipulate it. And it was kind of like a teeter-totter. Once it got started, it just kind of starts taking off, and not having any core to hold it or feel it means everything fell into his hands. And so it was quite a bit of time. He had to adapt fast, and he was, but he was still figuring it out. So he's only going to get better, but it's also hopefully going to get more efficient, where he can figure out the right spots to relax his hands a little bit, and that'll hopefully give him a little more time to figure it out. Because I think he was pretty tired with just so much input and so many things going on.
Yeah,
for sure. So Josh, tell us, other than that, you were at this test at Buttonwillow, and I know you still have involvement with Yamaha and everything, but tell us why you were there, which rider or riders you might have been working with, or all of them, and what your role was at that test.
Well, it was really only 2 guys, and I think everybody knows who those were. So, 3 guys, I guess. Sorry, Wayne. I fortunately, after the announcement was made for the team for, what is it, Monster Energy Attack Yamaha Factory Racing or something like that, I got a call or a text from Jake Gagne. It's pretty funny. Jake saw what I did with Garrett and this and that, but Jake's lived 25 miles down the road from me for damn near 12 years now. And I've probably gotten 3 phone calls from him in 12 years to go ride dirt bikes or something. So we chat at the track, and we're friendly, and we see each other at Super Camp a lot because he's really involved with Walker and Super Camp and stuff like that. And we've been buddies over the years, but he said, hey man, I'm in this deal. It's going to be new. It's going to be big, a lot going on. And I saw what happened. I really want your help. And so I was actually really excited to get the call from Jake, because somebody I feel like has kind of kept to himself and done his own thing. So this was kind of a shakedown for us. It was go out and spin the test with him, see how it goes, see if the most important thing is make sure he believes I can help him. So we went and spent those 2 days at that first test together, and I just kind of got sidetracked a little bit because I didn't know anything about the Wayne event happening until I got there. And Keith McCarty goes, you're my guy. And I go, what are you talking about? And so he ended up kind of sidetracking me with that, but it was okay because Jake was just kind of getting his first feel on the motorcycles and things like that. And I just went out and kind of watched to see what was going on, give him some input of some of the things that I could see, and talk him through some of my experience and how I think, he can or should approach it. And, we just kind of had some small conversations. The most I think we've ever talked was the 3.5-hour drive out to the racetrack from home. So, so yeah, it was fun. Yeah, I got to go take part of that and see where Jake's at. And I from my conversations driving home, I think we're going to keep doing this. So I think he's going to be one of my guys this year.
That's good. Tell us who your other guys are. Well, who you had this past year, but also who you have so far for professional road racers, going forward.
Yeah, well, this year I had 4 guys. I had Garrett Garrett, who kind of took the end of the season by storm and is now moving on to the World Championship. I think he'll be testing here the next day or 2, right?
Right.
So,
yep.
And then Bobby Fong, our super sport champion. I started working with Bobby the year before. Started working with him in 18. And then I had Cameron Peterson riding with Omega, and I was pretty impressed with his both his performance and his kind of attitude. They had a tough year. It's a young team. They had a lot of technical issues and things kind of holding them back. So track time was kind of hard to come by, and we had to kind of keep his head straight, keep him focused on the right things. And when he did get the opportunity to do good laps, he was in the mix, punching above his weight quite often, I felt like. And then Richie Escalante at Omega, or not Omega, excuse me, at Hudson Racing. Richie has been this, he's this young kid with a ton of potential who's done well in the lower classes, and moving up into super sport was going to be tough. And then this year was pretty stacked. So moving him up, I think he had done super sport the year before, but we wanted to see some improvement and growth, and so we worked on a lot of things, and a lot of it came down to teaching him, working with his communication with his crew chief, what's his issues to fix and what are the bike's issues that have to be fixed. And so the learning process kind of came for there. What's your job and what's your crew chief's job? And he was on the podium at the first race of the year, or at least fighting for it, and kind of finished the year that way too, where quite honestly I feel like he won at Barber, but hey, he got on the podium at Barber. So it was he started and finished strong, and they would kind of lose their way for a day or two somewhere in between, but usually he had at least one really good performance each given weekend. So it was a little bit tough to do because I was riding half those races, and it was hard to do much with the super sport guys. But with Bobby, we're not talking much about riding. It's more about just his frame of mind and his focus and what's important and what's not. And man, what a season Bobby had. So steady, first or second every race that he finished, and impressive year.
It's got to be a challenge doing something like you do, because obviously each one of those guys is a very different personality, and you have to treat them as such. Is a lot of it early on, like, well, for example, getting started with a new guy like Gagne, a lot of it's got to be just figuring out their personality and their wants and their needs, and sort of building a program around that, right?
Yeah, and like I've had a couple of opportunities here where I've gone out to the racetrack with a guy fresh, right, that I haven't worked with before, and said, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this. And basically you show up with this idea of how it's going to go. And, you already have this picture in your mind. I know something about all of these guys, right? I've had some experience with them. I've either ridden with them or I've watched them. Like, I've been a part of it for a while. So I go out there with this idea in my mind of what I think they are, and then just kind of weigh it out and play the game and find out. I've been surprised a couple of times on, oh, okay, what I thought was not going to be the issue was possibly going to be more a piece of the puzzle than I thought, and so there were some things I saw with Jake. Jake had ridden Yamahas before. He won championships on Yamahas, and then he kind of went away for a while and spent some time on some Hondas, and then came back around to this BMW, and then found himself back on a Yamaha again, back in the family. And some of the things that those other bikes needed, or shall I say allowed even, right? The Yamaha didn't seem to appreciate some of that. So it was actually kind of like bringing him back and slowing him down just a touch so that he could allow some good things to happen. The Yamaha bikes are pretty sorted, and you're not easily going to go out there and override the bike. I mean, you can watch the bikes on track. The guys are smooth, steady, relaxed, let the thing roll, and the bike performs well, and those guys get good results. You don't see a lot of guys trying to manhandle and muscle factory Yamahas around. And so on the other machines, he was trying to force it and make things happen because he could in certain areas of the track. So it was like, hey man, relax a little bit, tone it down, don't try to rev it so hard, and good things happen. And got to see a little bit of that kind of come around. And so it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but with Richie, we knew whenever I first went and worked with him and the Hudson guys, I knew that English wasn't his first language, right? And I knew that every time I saw him go on track, effort wasn't going to be the thing that was missing. The kid puts 100% in. You could see it in his riding. And but a lot of times what was happening was he would come in and he would give information, and in his broken English, he wasn't asked for more detail. So they would move in a direction on basically one piece or point of racetrack that was a priority for him in that moment. And so they would change a bike for a whole racetrack that didn't need to be changed, but for a corner or something. And so helping to build that communication between him and his team was key to not tuning themselves out of the window when they already had something that was working okay and he just wanted to improve an area. And then could he improve it by changing what he was doing, or did it need to be fixed in the motorcycle? So there was a lot of more of the thinking side of things. You know, his skills on the racetrack, I don't think were really questioned. It was just a matter of communication and how to work with your crew chief and what's the bike's job and what's yours. So it's every guy's been unique and different. And you know, Bobby, I've raced against Bobby for a long time. There was no question of how good he is, how hard he rides. We just had to get his brain and belief in himself, and he was a bit of a narcissist, really. Like, and so it was like, hey man, you know, relax. Good things are allowed to happen to you. You know, you're allowed to have good days. You know, and there were some really good things that I saw with him, where I saw him like reset, and I could hear him inside going, Josh would be saying this, Josh would be saying this, watching it on TV. You know, when him and Hayden would get to banging bars. Bobby's a Stockton hood rat. He wanted to go after him. He wanted to show him. He didn't want the world to see him get bullied by Hayden. And
right.
So his first reaction was, I got to go back after him. And I go, but Bobby, Hayden's fighting with desperate moves because it's obvious that you have the pace to ride off into the sunset. And so I kept telling him, bonus checks are better than showing the world that you can not be outbroken in that corner. But he needed that talk because in the moment he reacted. Generally, he would kind of want to react in the wrong manner. And it was like getting him to just relax and take a breath and think about the bigger picture and just ride off into the sunset. That's the greatest revenge
It's
you
true.
can have. Win the race.
Josh, what do you think? So there's this old adage, and people have probably even talked to you about this before, the idea that those who can do and those who can't teach. Well, there are a lot of riders that can't tell another rider how to ride or something in their head or whatever. You've been able to make that transition, and kind of when you were riding, I mean, I could see you did it with the other riders, not only other riders within Yamaha, but you know, in the paddock. What does it take to be a four-time champion, but also somebody that can articulate or can see what other people are doing and can articulate that to them?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I just, you know, like for me, it's a matter of I watch guys do something, right? And I was able to have some success. And I remember because I wasn't super talented, right? My talent was enough that I had enough talent that if I was smart, I could put all the pieces together. I could be steady and I could be dangerous. And so when I recognize a guy just missing on one of those areas that I spent so much time figuring out how not to have holes in my program. So I had to be focused on a lot of different aspects and facets of it. And I watched these young guys, right? And some of them are experiencing all these things for the first time, whether it's a feeling or just being in a situation or scenario. And I go, hey, I remember going through something like that. And these are the things that I thought about and focused on to help me steer clear or right the ship or whatever it is, you know? And so for me right now, all I do is I kind of watch and see what's happening. And I say, hey, I see this thing and I've been down this road. And I think that there's another way. And if if you're willing to put in a little work towards this, you can make the decision for yourself if it works or not, because not everything works for every person the same way. But I'm not like, I spend so little time. I'm not trying to make cookie cutter athletes either. I'm just trying, these guys, all the guys that I'm working with, the guys that I'm comfortable working with are already professionals at a very, very high level. So I feel relevant to that because it wasn't that long ago that I was competing at that level. I'm not talking a lot about technique. I'm spending time talking about the other parts of it, of how to deal with life around racing and how to have a good balance so that you can get the most out of yourself. And these are all things that I had coaches that weren't necessarily motorcycle racers, but coaches and good people around me. My guy Riggs Klicka, who worked with me for 12 years, 13 years, I had that guy to help me who had worked with Olympic athletes and stuff. He helped me just balance life and stay focused. But I can't help someone who's not internally motivated. If someone's not willing to work as hard as I was or am, then I don't know how to help that person.
You know, one of the things that we've had a conversation with Garrett about, and I've observed this, and you and I have talked about it, is there was a time I remember when, you know, Garrett's a different, well, all four of those guys you mentioned are all quite different guys, but, you know, Garrett is different other than beneath, he's got huge motivation, huge drive. You can see that, but he's a different sort of guy. And I remember there was a time when you would say, you know, I can't really figure him out. Well, that's changed. You must have figured him out. Did you see that kind of happen with him along the way?
No, I still can't say I figured him out. That's for sure. You know, like I tried to listen, and you know, we tried to. It was actually really hard. Garrett's probably one of the harder athletes that I've ever worked with, just because he's got his own little things. You know, like Bobby's sometimes are pretty simple, and it's just like, but getting him to hear it is hard because his is emotional. And Garrett's was a little bit different, but he could get emotional. We had this discussion after Coda, where he was so fast. I don't know if you remember, he had like a battery cable break or something like that.
Yeah, something weird. Yes,
and he missed the grid. So he had to start at the back of the field or from pit lane or something like that, and he charged all the way to the podium. And it was like, oh my God, if you got that speed, wait till you start from your starting position tomorrow. You're going to own this thing. And then the next day, he got a terrible start, and so he immediately went backwards, and he might as well have started in the back anyway. And then he had to charge his way through the field, and he kind of got to a spot where he was racing with JD. He was faster than JD, but JD just, through JD's life experience of racing, JD outfoxed him. And when we tried to have the conversation, it was not an easy conversation to have. Hey man, you're getting terrible starts, and we got to work on some racecraft. And the first thing was like, oh my God, you don't think I'm good at this? And I go, whoa, hang on a second. But it took a long time to get him back to where he was open to hearing what I was trying to say, so that we could get to the root of the problem. It's not that I think that you're bad at it, and even if I do, who cares? It's about fixing the problem. And so once we kind of sorted out a handful of things, then it became, okay, when you go out and it's time to get on the bike, you have so many different people and so many different things around you. And these guys are young, so they feel the influence of the team and the people around, right? And you go, okay, I've got this teammate who's the champ and the top dog. I'm not mathematically out of the championship, but I'm not really in it either. And so we'd be sitting out on the grid, turned inside out a little bit because he's super fast, and he's got a crew that wants that win too. And if the crew is even just a little bit of an inkling of, hey man, be careful out there, the rider feels that in a big way. Don't crash is what we hear. And it's really hard because you start thinking like that, and the first thing you do is go find a way to fall down.
Yep.
And so with Garrett towards the end, it was kind of like, I go, hey man, all right, here's your situation. You're worried about this, and the other thing. I go, I can tell you from my experience how I would be. And when I was in your position, this is how I feel. There's only one way for you to get back in the championship. You can't ride around hoping that they fall down and do it consistently. You have to go fucking beat them. You have to get out there. You have to whip their butts. And so that's your job. You need to go out there and forget about everything else. You need to win. And this is the game plan I think you need to do. And I said, if that can't happen, I want you to do one thing in this race that you're proud of, right? Get one thing right. Say, I did this better than I've done it before. One thing that you feel good about. And other than that, the only thing that matters is, and just made sure that that was the last thought that was in his head when it was time to roll out, right? Do it for you. Ride for you. If you do the job for yourself, everyone else comes along with you, right? No one can motivate you more than yourself. That's the hardest thing about being an athlete. Like Keith McCarty couldn't say anything to me at Yamaha that made me want to win more than I already did. So keeping that focus and not letting those outside things influence you, because if I screwed up and I fell down trying to win, I could sleep at night that way. I could go, man, I hate it, but I gave everything I had and I messed up, right? If I ride home in second place going, man, I could have won that thing if I just tried, and I was afraid to because of whatever it was out there, that was the scariest thing. I wouldn't sleep again after something like that until I could right that wrong. So with Garrett, towards the end of the season, when he got to steamrolling, there wasn't anything that could stop Garrett. Once he got going and once he closed the deal a time or two on those race wins, it didn't matter what the setup was anymore. None of that stuff mattered. The only thing that mattered was like just keeping his focus on winning races and setting him free. Yeah, he was bummed out that he made a mistake at New Jersey. He fell down in the morning warm-up, and he had sat in and waited for like 4 laps of a warm-up before he even went out. His first flying lap was within half a second of the track record. His second flying lap was like, I think less than a tenth off of the track record that he had set the day before. And his next lap was going to be better. And he made a mistake. He tipped over, bonked his head, and he couldn't ride the rest of the day. And I know that he's really bummed about that, but I'm like, hey man, you were focused, you were sharp, you were putting the nail in the coffin on those guys. You were going to break the track record in the morning warm-up. What was that going to do to those guys? They were already thinking about racing for second. You were doing all the right things, and you had a little mess up. Big deal. Move on.
Yeah, he had an impressive season. Let's talk about. I was able to go to like a day of your J-Force training camp last year, which was your, I guess, like a trial run for what you're going to be doing from here on out. And you've got one of those coming up here fairly soon. I think you enjoyed it, and I think it looked like something that you could maybe make a future with. Am I right with that? I mean, is that something you're looking for?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Like the thing is that what I wanted to do with the J-Force camp is do what we were already doing. It was kind of a handful of things that came involved with it. I've been involved with a lot of different schools and camps and things like that over the years. And for the most part, most of them are an instructional, like teaching you a method of riding a motorcycle, right? And a techniques type school. And then I got to go I got to take the young Yamaha guys. I got to take Jackson Blackman and Corey Ventura to the VR46 Master Camp at Valentino Rossi's house. And when I did that, they basically took them out and showed them all the fun things that those guys do for training, right? Oh, look, we ride Supermoto. We ride at Rossi's Ranch. We ride, we ride go-karts, and we do this and we do that, and we do all these fun things. And I got to show it all to them for like 5 or 6 days. And I let them experience every bit of it. And then they said, cool, that was fun, guys, great. And sent them home. And they got zero feedback about who they are as a rider or what areas these professional people who are so involved in this sport think that they need to be working on to get to the next level. They just showed them a day in the life of being a superstar in MotoGP, Moto2, the VR46 Academy, right?
Jeez, it's almost like they're advertising the brand more than they are teaching the riders, Josh. Is that right?
Like, listen, there was a small amount of instruction, right? Marco Belli was giving them some instruction on how to ride this, how to ride like the flat track and TT stuff, just to make sure that those guys didn't go out there and just flat out hurt themselves. And then they kind of let them ride a little bit, gridded them up one time, raced them, did a little podium with them. So there was some competition to it also, right? Which was a cool thing. But at the end, there was no like, here's a folder of feedback of what we thought about you versus the people you showed up with or the people that have come before you. And I thought, man, that's what was missing from And then the rest of it was like, man, every off season, right? I end up with this grip of motorcycle riders here. One year, I think we had like 8 guys here. We had Hayden Gillum and JD Beach, Jake Lewis, Garrett, Cam came down a little bit, Bobby staying at the house, Corey Ventura. Like, we had so many guys. And every day we went out and we trained on bicycles, or we went to the motocross track, or we went and rode some flat track. We rode in my backyard. We did all these fun things. And I had guys stay at my house for 6 to 8 weeks training like that. And every year it seemed like we were doing these things, and we were all having a blast doing them. And when you pitted all these competitive people together like that, what's going to happen when you put a bunch of professionals in an arena like that? They're going to be competitive with one another. And they just kept raising their level at everything. Guys who weren't strong motocrossers were starting to ride strong on the motocross track. Guys who weren't strong flat trackers were figuring out a way. They were learning from the people around them, their peer group, how to get in there and mix it up, because they didn't want to be sitting on the sidelines all day. They just forced themselves to fit in, right? Guys who weren't strong cycling started improving their cycling. And I thought, I can bring this to more people, right? And make this available, but to guarantee all the resources are there. All these guys were professionals who came and brought their own equipment. So now if I'm going to provide equipment, do all these things, we got to figure out a price point and a this and that of how we can do that. And so the J-Force Camp, honestly, is currently, first one kind of about to go off here, built for racers, people wanting to make it to the next level in their racing, people who are, I feel like the camp mostly appeals to the top level club racer wanting to go pro racing. Any pro racer, I think, can benefit from it. The guys that we're going to have as instructors will be former camp alumni, So Cam Peterson and Bobby Fong will be here as the primary guys. Jake Gagne will probably be slipping in quite a bit and doing some different things with us, as he's involved with all of the ways that we train anyway. And, we've got several cyclists that are going to be around that we always have a lot of cyclists to train with, things like that. We bring them to this really cool place. Oceanside offers a lot. And we're going to make it very, very competitive. So the other thing we did with the camp was, that was a big part of it. We made it competitive. So we rode some dirt track in the backyard, but before too long, we started saying, okay, we're going to make this hard. And we ended up doing, 40 to 50 starts a night. We would basically lay out a track real quick, and then we'd do some checkered flags, 3-lap races, and the last guy gets popped off the back. You're going to go sit and watch, right? Until we got it down to one person. And then we'd change the track, grid them all up, give them 1 lap to look at it, and go again. And we forced them to get creative, right? Forced them to try to get to the front. Now, this was kind of really born in wanting to get Garrett more racecraft and starts under his belt. But all of them it paid off for, And so nobody wanted to sit on the sideline and watch. And our real beta test was probably Hunter Dunham in this, because Hunter was a junior cup guy and running kind of mid-pack. I think he had gotten up closer to the front once or twice, and we brought him in and we put him in there with some pretty high-level guys. And he got beat up a little bit. But now he's found a new love, cycling. He's actually loving it, bought a bicycle, and is going full bore on the cycling. And his first race back after camp was Sonoma, which is a long way from Atlanta, Georgia, where he's from. And all of a sudden, that guy ran at the front where he could see Rocco the whole race. So it was a pretty significant improvement from what he had been doing. I mean, he had been here racing with the guys that were winning the Super Sport Championship. Like, he did 100 starts with those guys. So all of a sudden, he showed up there and he's like, okay, he just kind of went through the motions again and put himself in a better position, which was great. So I think that we have the ability to do that and give some people some feedback of, hey, we see if you want to be a pro, right? We see that you're a little soft on the racecraft, or on the, you're fast, but you need to work on racecraft. Hey, you can race really well. We got to work on your speed. Hey, your fitness is going to have to take a step forward if you want to do this, based on what I know about pro racers, which I've been around a lot of them, and The other thing we did was get them out of their comfort zone, because a lot of these younger guys never played a stick and ball sport in their life. They've only been motorsports guys. So we made them compete and have to learn something new. Somewhere along the line, you're going to come around and get involved in something like motorcycle racing, you know, and some of these guys have been involved with nothing but motorcycle racing, and they were successful to a certain point, and then they kind of run out of ideas of how to improve. And so if you give them something new, something that they have not done before, and ask them to try to figure out how to get better at it, maybe it'll open up some of the learning centers and pathways in your brain and give you some new, fresh ideas of how to open your eyes and look at things a different way and maybe improve.
And that was a tennis, right? You guys played some tennis down with the camp with those guys, right?
We did tennis. We went to the batting cages. Some other ideas we have would be a surf lesson. I have actually a guy who's talked to me a little bit about maybe doing like a cardio, like a kickboxing or a Muay Thai boxing, something like that, do some drills and things like that. So we've got a lot of different ideas of things that we will mix in to get the guys just doing things that are not their normal thing, and then try to force them to maybe grade them or compete them in some way, so that we can give them a grade system on that, on seeing if they're getting frustrated and quitting, or if they're taking in this information and trying to learn and making an effort to figure something new out, so that we can just give them some feedback of where we think our strengths and weaknesses on them, so that they can be successful motorcycle racers at whatever level they choose to be a part of.
So let's run through the details a minute. So you've got a camp coming up. It's February 3rd till the 14th, is it? Or 13th?
Till the 12th. It's 10 days. It's a long camp. 10 days, 10 intense days. It's going to be hard.
And you're picking 5 guys. You're basically kind of looking at who you get and kind of looking at skill sets and putting together a group of 5 guys, because the kind of the dynamic between the students, if you want to call them that, or the campers, is sort of a factor too, right?
Yeah, we're going to kind of we're dare I say, we're doing an application, and applicants send in stuff, and we're going to find kind of a like-skilled, the most closely skilled group of people that we can put together. And then people who don't get selected now will be put into, hopefully, whatever the next camp is. We'll get more people in kind of that group, and we'll group people together and make it happen. So with our camp, lodging is included, and a lot of the meals. And so you basically show up here, and if you need help getting a bicycle, we have some resources to reach out and help get loaner or rental bicycles. And yeah, we're going to go out every day basically, and we're going to pedal 10 days in a row. It's going to be a part of everyday routine. We'll be doing some supermoto. We'll be riding dirt track here in the backyard. And we got a couple other fun things. I think the February camp, we're going to try to put something together to go see San Diego Supercross, pedal in the morning, go out and watch Supercross race. And we may even do some stuff with whoever can pay attention and predict. We might do some kind of race prediction of results and grade people on that based on what they think from watching the guys in practice and stuff like that. All kinds of stuff. And then we have a few other ideas, one thing I did with Corey Ventura when he was racing Junior Cup was he would just watch races. I'd say, hey, man, I need you to watch this Moto3 or this World Supersport race and tell me what you see. And he just watched the race to watch the race. And I said, hey, man, I want you to watch for this, this, and this, and treat it like homework. Because, again, here's a young guy who's been fast and had success, but when it came to racing and dicing it up, he was starting to struggle a little bit. So I wanted him to see that there was a plan involved in how these guys were racing, and how to act and react to things happening to you, as well as trying to make moves on other people. And I felt like he immediately, once he kind of saw it and understood it visually, he understood and he applied it immediately. So we may put together a few races and kind of have some sit-down study sessions at the house of watching some races and talking about what we see and cool things like that. It's just going to be what my life was about, man. It was a successful recipe that I think I can bring to the people. I had other things in my life other than motorcycle racing, but everything I did was about figuring out how to be a better motorcycle racer in some way, shape, or form.
So here's the big question. Paul, I know we're out of time. Let me just jam this one in there, and I'm sure you might have another question.
You guys are quitting already?
Well, we usually go. We're already past where we normally go, so we could go a long time. But anyway, that's okay. No, it's good. So the question I have for you is: you haven't retired yet? Are you done racing?
Oh, I don't know. It's about opportunity. I think that we are working towards a plan to do the Daytona 200 again, on our 600 that we still have. But with some of Melissa's plans of what she has going forward, I don't see me racing in Super Sport and MotoAmerica again this year. As much as I'm going to hate that, because I had so much fun riding the bike. But if any opportunities come along for any reason, I don't wish anyone to get injured. But if it happens, and
you have leathers,
and somebody thinks that I could do a decent job in that spot, I'm around. And I'm doing, I still have leathers. I'm still doing one-on-one coaching around here in Southern California, and so I just don't know. I don't know where I'll be. If the call comes and I can do World Endurance, I'll do something like that. If I get, who knows what the call is,
I've got a quick question, because I could I think it might be too early for this now, but I was thinking like your camp would be, I could picture it being like this. I know baseball has these fantasy camps where, you get old fat guys like me and Sean, and we want to go, we want to go hang out with these guys, and we want to do the cycling, and we want to ride in your backyard and this and
More
that.
me than you.
I could just see it developing into something like that, where, you have, you sort of have like 6 to 8 regular guys, and then a couple of stars, for example, that they spend a week with and do this kind of stuff. It would be completely different than what you're doing now, but it would be, I could see it being a good business plan for some reason.
Yeah, no, and absolutely, I think that you're right. But the J-Force camp was not born out of, hey man, I got to find a way to make a couple of dollars. Where it started for me was, what is it that I'm passionate about, and what is it that makes sense to me? And that is, if I can't be racing at the top level, there are a few guys that I think I can offer something to at the top level. And those guys, that's what I'm interested in working my butt off, right? And so right now, the main J-Force camp, training camp, is based around that idea. But we are in the works and have plans for a J-Force junior camp, where we're looking at possibly like 12 to 15-year-olds, and doing it, the junior camps being a shorter time span, like a long weekend, a Friday till a Monday. And then I think that we are going to be able to do some kind of experience like that. And I'm not quite sure what we'll call them, but I want to get the true J-Force training camps kind of up and running a little bit before we just start bringing in customers and saying, hey man, you want to come spend a couple of ride days hanging out with the pro boys and having fun, mixing it up with them and things like that for more of the experience. I think that there could be that in the future. Absolutely. When the time is right. Right now, I want to get this thing up and running and make sure it's doing what I think it could do, because I think that the world over, it could offer something really good to pro racers. A lot of these guys want to train by themselves and not show the world the secrets, and I don't think that there's any secrets to it. And I think that peer learning and teaching is important, and it helps people raise their level.
Yeah, that's true.
Hard to raise your level if you're not riding against people that are faster than you in some way, shape, or form. So let's get a lot of fast guys together and make it really hard for them, and then their level will start going.
No, I think that's good. For sure,
Sean's always got something.
Well, let me relate. Let me tell one little quick story, because I didn't really tell one at the beginning, and I don't even know if Josh remembers this, but it was back in 2010 at Mid Ohio, and I remember, he had just gotten with Yamaha, and
this isn't us walking through the cornfield, is it?
No, that was before that.
Okay.
No, that was a weird thing too when we did the video in the cornfield. Yeah, that was pretty weird. No, this was before that. This was your first.
It wasn't that weird, Paul. It wasn't that kind of weird.
The children of the corn. It was it
was like the racetrack, a Field of Dreams kind of racetrack.
It was supposed to be, but
I remember correctly.
Yeah, we did. It was fun. We had fun when we did those videos. But no, this was before that. This was when I was walking around the paddock, And I remember you would come off the track, and this was your first year with Yamaha. And there'd been a long time since Yamaha had done anything in Superbike, and you were back doing this, and it looked like things were on the up and up. And I had said to you something to the effect of, well, if you need any more motivation, and I don't remember what it was that I had to give you for motivation, because you said, hey, look, I don't need any more motivation than I already have in myself. And that's kind of what you said earlier when you said Keith couldn't give you any more motivation. So ever since then, whenever I would occasionally say that to you, I would always go, well, I know you don't need any more motivation, and I'd always have to tell you something just to get it out of my head. But that part earlier in the podcast, when you said about riders, they have to have the motivation within themselves, and you had it and have it. And, nobody could give that to you because it's more than what you can give yourself is very true.
All right. I told a little fib because one time Keith McCarty did actually give me a piece of motivation. I want to say you were talking about 2009 maybe, and this was 2010 because Ben was
Bostrom.
Right. It may have actually been 2009. I think it was 2010 though, when Ben had hurt his thumb, Bostrom, and he had finished it was a 24 lap race. He did 24 laps on my back wheel at a +0, and I won the race at Ohio. And we went to the press room. We did all the things that we normally do, all that kind of stuff. And that evening or the next morning, I saw Keith McCarty, and we were talking about it. He was happy about the win. Everything was great. And he said, yeah, Ben told me when he was riding behind you, he could tell you were getting tired out there. And I was so incredibly offended that it was like, it actually did motivate me more because whatever it was, the fact that Keith felt the need to say that to me, it wasn't what Ben said, because I knew so let me just say, Ben didn't know what he was talking about. Right? Whatever he was seeing, that wasn't it. And so was it Ben taking a shot at me, or was it Keith seeing that I wasn't going to roll out the next day or whatever it was? But I made sure that I never let anybody question my fitness again. It was all I needed, right? Whatever reason they may question, I didn't immediately just go, those guys don't know what they're talking about. I immediately went, why would somebody think that? And I'll show them. You'll never be able to say something like that to me again. So it was a bit of a motivator in that respect.
I think you're right. It was 2009 when I said that to you. I don't know if it was before or after Keith, but I could tell something was up. But to that point, after that, you went on that tear that year, right? That was.
Yeah. No, I think 2009, I doubled it at Mid-Ohio, Virginia, and Jersey to finish out the season. So
there you go.
It was good.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game, right?
All right, I'm going to cut you two jabbers off. Josh, thanks for joining us, and good luck with that camp. I'm sure I'll sneak down there and ride with you guys or something for at least half a day.
Good. I appreciate you chatting about it too.
Yeah, no, it's good. I think it's a good thing you're doing, and you've done a good job with the riders that you've worked with, and I know you're going to continue that. So that's a good thing for you to do, and I know it makes you feel like you're still a big part of it, and you are, and that's important. So that's cool that you're doing that, because our paddock will not be the same whenever you're not there. So keep it up.
Thanks a lot, Josh, for being on. Thanks, Paul.
All right, Sean. All right, you guys take care and have a good week, and we'll talk later.